This is Ben Lamort. Welcome back to the 20 something toolkit. Episode 12, journaling, the superpower of your defining decade. Now, this is the first superpower because journaling is a big deal. Now, some of you probably already journal, but if you haven't, well, this episode is going to hopefully inspire you to get going on that. Now, look, this might happen to you if it hasn't already. You lose your job. And sadly for me, this happened to me right after I had kids. We had just bought that house, the one with the multi-units, so we could rent it out, and that helped. But financially, things were getting tricky for us. And when things get tricky for us, you find out kind of who you really are, right? Times get tough. I mean, we were a single income household, and I was the one making the income. So all of a sudden, we went from one income to zero income, which is not a good thing. So my buddy Sid, I had helped him out earlier in his career, so he reached out and said, "Bro, I feel you. Why don't you just take a 4-week consulting project with my company and you can do some KPI work?" Okay, I said, great. First of all, I didn't really know what KPI work was all about, but Sid seemed to think I could do it, so I'm taking the job. And it was supposed to be about 20 to 30 hours a week. In fact, I was going to be getting paid for 30 hours a week, but in reality, it was really only about 10 hours a week for me to actually do this work. So I asked Sid, what do you want me to do with that other 20 hours? Are you still going to pay me for 30 hours a week? I mean, do I still bill you for this? Is there more work I can do? And Sid, thank God for Sid, right? He said, oh yeah, bill us for the 30 hours. I mean, that's in the budget. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to put in about 10 hours a week journaling. Write about your work process, what it is you're thinking, what you're noticing, what's working, what's not working. And then when we have our weekly 30-minute call, just our one-on-one, I want you to give me your 3 biggest insights each week. I don't want to actually see your journal. That's going to be for you, but I just want those insights. So I said, okay, great. So that gets me to 20 hours. What about the other 10? I mean, how do I get to 30? And he said, read books, read about KPIs, research them, learn everything you can so that we might be able to apply some of these concepts and add that into your journal as well. And that might even lead to even better insights. I'm like, this guy's the ideal boss, right? So I did it. I was doing 2 to 3 hours a day of journaling and an hour or so, maybe even 2, just researching and reading books. And something powerful started to happen. What I noticed was when you really keep your thoughts in your head, and by the way, I do this, I'm guessing you do too, you ruminate and you're not really making progress. But when you write them down, something shifts because your thinking starts to become more like a story, right? With a beginning, middle, end. You start to move forward. You build on your experience. You start to notice, oh, this is working. Oh, wait, that's not. Oh, that's happening. Guys, this is critical reflection, right? Because you realign. You become more aware. You start writing down, that's not good, or this is working, this is a good thing, circle it. And then you realign. And after you're done journaling, you say, I'm going to take action and do this. So the journaling habit changed everything for me. And by the way, that 4-week project, which kind of saved my ability to, maintain my house, it ended up turning into a 6-month project. And even more importantly, because of this journaling, it helped me discover something about myself and what I had to bring to the world in a much more deeper way. The one thing that I learned that I could really do amazingly well because this KPI project evolved into something else and it was giving me energy and it was the work that I thought I could really do that the world needed was OKR coaching. This was something that I did for 12 years. So this journaling process got me on track to go into a field that I somewhat invented for myself at the time. OKR coaching was not I had to start my own business doing it. But I ended up traveling around the world, giving keynotes. I got 2 books published by a respectable publisher. I built a career that I really loved, and it came from journaling during that vulnerable period. So I guess I kind of want to be Sid for you. Look, I can't pay you to do journaling 10 hours a week. I wish I could. So when I talk about journaling, I know some of you already do this, so you know the power of this. But even if you do journal, stay tuned because I want to get deeper into why journaling works and how it can be so effective in your 20s. Now, research on reflective journaling actually shows that taking some time to write regularly is linked to greater self-awareness, obviously, right? I mean, if you reflect in your journal, if you've done this before, you don't need to hear it about any research. But what I found interesting was it can reduce stress. And I think probably a lot of that is just getting all those thoughts out. It's almost like therapeutic, right? And it can give you stronger problem solving skills and get this, better learning skills. So if you want to do clear thinking for better choices in your 20s, boy, journaling is going to be key. In fact, reflection and journaling can help you understand how you think. And see, when you understand how you think, you're going to make better decisions. Now, there's a whole nother body of research which comes out of UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center that shows that journaling can be especially powerful during difficult periods. So look at me, right? I had lost my job and I was at a new place trying to figure out what am I going to do with all this time. And I started journaling, and it turns out it helped me to do an amazing thing. Now, writing helps you, it gets your brain organizing experience into a narrative story, which again will shift you from that rumination of where you're just thinking thoughts over and over again into more reflection where you actually process what it is that's going on in your thoughts and you learn from what's happening. So thanks to the UC Berkeley Greater Good Science Center, you're giving me some evidence of some research that shows everything that's been my experience anyway. Journaling is not just about writing about your day. I don't want you to think like, oh, today, I saw some birds and then we went to lunch. Like, it's not just telling the diary story like it might have been like in the 1800s, in those journals that you hear about. And some of those are poetic and great. You should totally do that too. I'm not trying to take away anything from those of you who are like writing creative journals about like my day was so magical and the birds were so chirpy or whatever. But I want to try to turn experience into insight. I want to turn that insight into clarity and better decision making. And that's why journaling becomes one of your main superpowers in your defining decade. Because I guess also journaling isn't just writing about feelings, right? How am I feeling? It's fine to do that. But I want to emphasize that journaling, when you just go ahead and write down your thoughts, it's going to get your thinking made visible. You're going to see your thoughts, right? I mean, journal about the actual work you're doing at your current job, like I did. Or you could journal about your research process exploring career options. You could journal about your friend situation in your social life or your financial situation or really whatever is going on for you. Because whatever it is that's going on in your head, that's going to be important. Your head is signaling, hey, I'm ruminating on this. Like there's something stuck here. This is your opportunity to not be a victim of your inner thoughts going crazy, but rather to say, okay, let's listen to that and let's put this down on paper and make it visible. Something happens when thinking becomes visible. First of all, you do stop ruminating. We talked about that because writing moves you forward. You're going to gain clarity because these vague thoughts, these sort of weird feelings and thoughts that are going on, this confusion in your head, it's going to become more understandable when you write it down. And then you're going to be the one directing your life because you're like, hey, look, those are my thoughts. I can see that down on the page. Okay, now I can step back from that. I can identify what it is that's going through, that's giving me energy. Because your 20s are not going to be just shaped by random events. They're going to be shaped by the awareness that you have of what's going on through your reflection and your intentional action. So let's talk about what are the journaling techniques that you can use in your 20s, right? One of them is very simple. It's called energy tracking. You just write down what are the things you did? What are the activities you did today? Like this is a little bit like the flow matrix, right? Okay, today I did, and then you fill in the blank. I commuted to work, or I met with these people, or I went to a music class or whatever. And what is it that's draining you? And what is it that's really giving you energy? And this is going to help you to reveal perhaps even a career direction, but just general a life direction. And this can be, like I said, activities within your current job that you're doing now. It could be classes you're taking in college, or just noticing, oh, okay, well, when I'm outside, I feel like I'm getting more energy. I'm starting to see a pattern there. Or wait, when I solve a complex problem, I get excited. After you make a decision that feels like an important one to you, write about that in your journal. Like, why did I choose this? Did I use those 3 legs of the decision stool, right? Did I know my values, alternatives, and did I have the information I needed to be confident? Or did I have a wobbly leg? What were the assumptions that I was making? And then how did the outcome turn out? Remember, we talked about differentiating between decisions and outcomes. You can totally do that in your journal on your decision reflection. And then, of course, write down what did I learn from this? And then pattern recognition, right? If you write in your journal long enough, you can sort of look at it and you can say, hey, what is this thing that keeps happening over and over again in terms of success? Oh, I succeed when this happens. Oh, okay, well then do more of that. Or, I don't know, I kind of get stuck when this happens. Okay, well, do less of that or don't take that approach. Now, I've seen people do another exercise in their 20s. I got to say, I feel like it's a little bit new agey. It's the future self journal. So this is when you take 5 years out, let's say, and you look at yourself 5 years out and you write down, what does your day look like? What kinds of work are you doing? What's engaging about your day? What is it that's putting you into a flow state? what is mattering to you? Like, what is important to you now, 5 years from now? And then what advice would your future self want to give to you now? Now, you could do this 5 years from now. I've seen people do it when I'm 80 years old, advice from my 80-year-old self. That might be a little bit difficult for you if you're in your 20s. You might want to think about, advice from my 30-year-old self. Just look a little bit out there. That still seems like a long ways away. Most people drift around in their 20s. They're kind of reacting to life. Like, this is why I keep on talking about value focused instead of alternative focused, right? And so when you journal, you're going to turn your experiences into insights. And that's going to give you the insights that can ultimately shape your direction into your defining decade. I mean, let's face it, when I did my journaling, thank you, Sid, it got me really in touch with, like, what is it that I can do that I love to do that really brings energy into the world that has a value. And that's going to be those three questions that I just built into there is going to be a concept known as ikigai. It comes from Japan. And I think we're going to make that be the subject of the next episode. But before we do, now it's your turn. So this is your 7-day journal challenge. So for the next 7 days, I want you to take 10 to 20 minutes, or actually even better, just take one day and knock out a full hour, right? Get into a zone if you're inspired. The point is to go into a topic, get deep, right? Something that's stuck in your head. Now, I want you to try to get into a flow state as you journal so that you're literally losing track of time and you're just really getting into a zone. Based on my journaling experience, what action can I take, tomorrow or really soon? And then at the end of the week, I want you to look at what you wrote and just see if there's any patterns. Is there any surprises? Does anything feel clear when you look at that? Because you should see clarity as you reflect. And then journaling, which is what we did today. This is the superpower that's going to help you to understand yourself more deeply. And as you're journaling, this is also going to be a way to effectively identify your values, understand your thinking, what gives you energy. And ultimately, it can lead you to find the direction that you want to follow in your life so that you don't just randomly drift or do the so-called random walk through your 20s, but rather you become proactive. You shape your 20s. So hopefully you're seeing journaling is not just about writing. It's a superpower that can shape your defining decade. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.